Each year on the first Sunday of Lent, the Church celebrates the Sunday of Orthodoxy, the Sunday that is the triumph of orthodoxy, the victory of truth over heresy. In 787, a council was called that rejected those who attacked the use of icons. Now these attacks continued for another 60 years, and finally a synod was called, and it declared the truth, that icons are to be used in our churches, in our homes, in our worship. And the synod then processed to the church of Hagia Sophia, holding their icons aloft, singing and chanting hymns to God. And when they arrived, they restored their icons and declared that Sunday to forever be the Sunday of Orthodoxy, the triumph of orthodoxy. Now since then, this triumph of truth has become more than simply the triumph of the restoration of icons. It is the triumph of truth over all heresies, over all schisms. Every one of us must recognize as Orthodox Christians the sacred duty that we've been given. We have inherited a sacred holy treasure, which is the truth of our faith. It's up to every one of us to proclaim it, to profess it, to live it, to believe it. And to do these things we must know it. As far as each of us is possible, we must come to know our faith. This is our sacred duty. But as St. Ignatius says, ordinary Christians, we are not called to go out and challenge heresies. It is enough that we protect our own hearts from heresies. Because just as wrong actions can not only be sinful, but they damage us, they wound us, so too wrong belief, heretical belief, is a spiritual wound that runs much deeper than even our behavior and our actions. And just as we must repent of evil actions, we must repent of evil heresies, wrong thoughts about God. We place ourselves beyond the boundaries of salvation if we embrace heresy. This is why the Church has been so careful in proclaiming the truth, sharing the truth, and passing it through the generations. Our apostles and our bishops are now the shepherds of that faith, and the whole authority of the Church now rests in them, which is why they must too be so careful over what they say, over what they do, the way they proclaim the truth. And on the Sunday of Orthodoxy, at the end of the service, we process around the church carrying our icons aloft, reminding us, yes, of that first procession, but proclaiming the victory of truth. And in that procession, there are icons more precious than even those painted of Christ and of the saints. That is, the living icons which are the Orthodox people themselves. For all people were created in the image of God. Every man and woman is created in God's image. And so we are called, first of all, to recognize the image of God within ourselves. However defaced, however covered in sin, we know that image to be. We must struggle, we must repent, and work with God's grace within us that this image may be restored. But also, we are called to recognize the image of God in every other person. However far that image is defaced, however deliberately defaced that image may be. And we venerate our icons of the saints and of Christ, and so too we must venerate these living icons. We venerate them through the way we treat them, the way we speak to them. The treatment of other people must be a veneration of God's image within them. We are called to treat every man and woman as bearing the very image of God. Lent is an opportunity to struggle a little more, and just a little more, that God's grace may cleanse us, that we may turn away from our sin, that in a small way the image of God may be restored once again within us. We may be set aright, that we may draw closer to Christ himself. And we must believe that in this process of change, every one of us is invited by God to enter into the very life of the Holy Trinity.